Good evening, and welcome to the 20th episode of Leadership Conversations in the Development Sector. The social impact sector is full of passionate leaders with innovative outlooks on the world's greatest problems. Our leadership conversations focus on unique insights offered by these leaders as they share their experiences and move the development sector forward. Our host, Go Barefoot, is an interactive web portal dedicated to the social sector. It brings together individuals, NGOs, NPOs, and the CSR arms of organizations with the mandate of creating a one-stop information website for both networking as well as knowledge sharing. We are supported by Catalyst, an NGO which has been preparing young women for leadership roles to create equality in opportunities and bridge the gender gap. Also, we are supported by Third Sector Partners, India's only executive search firm exclusively for the development sector. Our guest today is one of the leading lights in the development sector. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Arun Baral, CEO, Harvest Plus. Arun oversees the organization's global efforts to develop and deliver micronutrient-rich staple food crops to reduce micronutrient deficiency or hidden hunger among malnourished populations. He focuses on developing effective partnerships to sustainably scale up biofortification and support development of food systems that provide access to nutritious food for all. He joined Harvest Plus in 2017 as Chief Financial Officer after more than 30 years in the international agriculture sector, based in Asia, Africa, and the United States. He spent over 24 years at DuPont Pioneer, including as Asia Regional Business Director, where he was instrumental in developing and executing a strategy that significantly grew the Asia business. He holds a Master of Business Administration from Drake University in Iowa and a Bachelor of Commerce honors from Delhi University in India. In conversation with Mr. Baral is Shital Kakkar Mehra, leadership expert and executive presence coach for CEOs. Shital has trained over 75,000 professionals across Asia and has personally coached over 1,000 CXOs in the past 2 decades. She has conducted workshops for diverse organizations across Asia and has been invited as a speaker by leading B schools and professional associations. She is also a best-selling author, and her latest best-selling book, Executive Presence: The Poise Formula for Leadership, is one of India's first research-based formula for this leadership skill. Shital is an active philanthropist and a social entrepreneur. We welcome you, Mr. Baral, and over to you, Shital.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the session. We are very excited to hear your views. And I'm going to start with my first question. Now, you have lived and worked in diverse cultures across countries in the last 3 decades. And, our audience would definitely love to know that if you could share with us some of the effective ways that you have used to develop leaders, both in the corporate sector as well as, of course, now in the social and the development sector.
Thank you, Shital, and great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the opportunity. So a little bit about Harvest Plus, in addition to what was just said, we're dedicated to addressing malnutrition. And it's a big problem. 3 billion people cannot get a healthy diet. And there are, more than 2 billion people who are suffering from malnutrition. And malnutrition's effects are very devastating on health. Basically, it reduces the human potential. There are, I would say, 3 essential micronutrients other than iodine that are critical for human health. They are iron, zinc, and vitamin A. And when the body is deficient in these, your ability to, your full potential, like your ability to think, your cognition, your physical development, all those things really get impacted. So I joined the development sector not too long ago in 2017, worked in the private sector, and leadership development is key. So here are some of the practical, sort of things that I used based on experience. So there's a lot of material out there on leadership development, but what I did to develop leaders was to sort of look for the key skill set. Now, there are lots of things people can focus on, but what I looked particularly was, especially in the global context, if you have to, develop global people, which I think is the new world order now. You've got to look at certain skills like, curiosity in the people to understand, to learn things. So that's important. Their ability to sort of stretch themselves, go outside the comfort zone is important. Self-awareness is very important. Their ability to build relationships globally is very critical. And then inclusiveness and respect for differences. So these were, other than being, the baseline being smart and everything. I mean, these were the other soft skills that I was looking for, where people, when they demonstrated it, those were the people who were basically raising their hands and had the skill set. So once you identify that, these are the potential, candidates that can then, take your company or mission forward, then how do you groom them? And this is very, very important. And what I found in my career as well was, one thing that played a big role was mentoring and coaching. And, we as leaders need to spend time with our people. I mean, we think, it should be sort of a certain percentage of your time, if you're a senior leader, should be allocated to developing people. It is a critical responsibility of the senior leadership team. So, when I was in the private sector, our leadership team, we had assigned, these, high potential candidates to certain, leaders in the leadership team, and we would rotate these candidates. So, you would work with a finance CFO, you would work with a marketing, you would work with CIO. I mean, technology is very important. So coaching and spending time with people is very, very important. And I think, I at a personal level, you need to equate this just as what you do for your children, how you coach them, you need to have the same kind of, intensity to sort of develop the future leaders. So that's one I found was very, and it helped me personally. I was coached by a few people when I was in the private sector, and it really helped me sort of, get clarity on what's important, how to address those kinds of things. So that's one. The other thing is, obviously, immersion is a very good way of, developing global leaders. Now I'm talking in the global context. So this is, immersion could be in different ways. You could do, like global projects. And then you could also do, assignments, international assignments. So those are very, very important things. And then organization also needs to have a development program, that sort of holistically sort of, creates different programs for people to sort of develop. So coaching.
So interesting you say that, because, you mentioned the word respect. Earlier respect was only a word which was used very infrequently especially in the corporate world. But today, every CEO is also answerable, respect for stakeholders, for vendors, for clients. Yeah. So there's so much conversation around words like respect. Now, you mentioned something very interesting about mentoring and coaching. Very frequently, some of the young professionals in the audience ask how to get a mentor. That means if the organization does not have a mentoring program, now what you felt at a younger age was that there was a very structured mentoring coaching program. But in case they don't have, and in case there isn't, then any ideas on how they can actively get not one, possibly multiple mentors?
Yeah. So great question, by the way. I mean, with technology, things have really improved, and I wish I was born now in this age than when I was, a long time ago. So, now with the information and the digitalization of, knowledge, I mean, I would give you a very simple example. If your organization doesn't have a formal, program for mentoring, or the opportunities are limited, I mean, just go to YouTube and listen to the CEOs. I mean, you admire certain companies. If you admire Starbucks, or if you admire um, uh, Facebook, or anything of that sort, or Google, just go there and listen to the CEOs. There are a lot of interviews out there, and I think they're a wealth of knowledge. And so to me, now with the technology, you have access to, the top rung. I mean, look at Microsoft. Satya Nadella is on YouTube. I mean, you have the excerpts of what he's talking about. And when I grew up, I didn't have access to anything. I mean, I read about things. I read about famous CEOs, etc. So I think that's one way of doing it. The other way is also then, you identify, people outside the organizations, approach them. There are more people willing to help than we realize. I think we just sort of feel a little shy about it. I've had people come from, different organizations reaching out, after interactions, that they want to learn more. And, I think there's no harm in asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I tell people, squeaky wheel gets the most grease, right? The more noise you make, the more grease you'll get. So,
That's true.
so yeah, there are some practical examples, but technology now, can give you access to so many leaders now that are on different, follow them, social media, see how they think, I mean, those are the things you need to learn. What are their focus? How do they react to situations? And it is your own self-responsibility to seek out these kinds of, because in today's day and age, I see the opportunities are tremendous to learn even from outside the organization with the tools, the digital opportunities that I just described.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. And yes, social media offers you, and YouTube offers you a chance, as well as, of course, superb insights that don't live in the fear of rejection. Just ask, and the
Yeah.
answer just may be yes. So, yes, now moving on to a little more technical question. What challenges and opportunities do you see for biofortified crops in India, especially in comparison with the other countries that you are working with?
Okay. So, a little bit about biofortified quick. We have Harvest Plus and its partners have developed biofortified crops. These are basically nutrient enriched crops. They're not GMOs, that are high in essential vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A, iron, and zinc. So in India, we have got zinc wheat, and we all know the importance of zinc now after the COVID. We have high iron pearl millet. Iron is very important for, cognition, physical, ability to demonstrate good physical work, and then vitamin A. So in India now, these crops are ready for the market. So they have been released, and and they're growing really nicely. So the first thing I want to say is technology is ready. These are staple crops: wheat, rice, pearl millet, and lentils, that are out there now. What we need to do is how we create awareness about these crops. So that's the challenge. It's a new technology, but the potential is really to transform food systems. So if these crops, if the farmers, can switch from wheat to zinc wheat, they will get, in addition to what they were getting with that conventional wheat, this wheat will bring additional zinc to them. And, zinc is good for, addressing stunting, your immunity, all that stuff. So the challenge now is how we, how big of a mouthpiece we have, loudspeaker we have, and how do we explain it to people? So this to me now is the key thing, is how do we, propagate and explain to people this huge opportunity of a nutrition revolution. That India had a green revolution, right? and the scope here of a nutrition sort of revolution is immense. These crops can improve the uh, food systems in the quality of staples. So for me, that's one big challenge. These crops again, are also addressing the key needs of the poor people who don't have access to, supplementation. Like, we are eating a zinc supplement, but many poor people don't have. So people who eat what they grow, for them, this is very, very important. So the key thing for now, Harvest Plus and its partners, is how do we raise awareness? Because in India, you know, $12 billion are lost every year due to malnutrition. 12 billion. 20% of the children school age are deficient in zinc, and zinc deficiency not only makes you stunted physically but mentally. So the people are not developing mentally. 25% of the women childbearing age are anemic. So if these crops can help address these kinds of severe malnutrition and related deficiencies, I think the future generation will be really sort of benefit from these crops. So we are now in a quest to create awareness. So that's the biggest challenge, because technology is proven. We have proved the concept, and we just want to make sure that now it gets to the dinner plates of the most vulnerable people. But also, there's a big opportunity for private. I'll talk about that at some point in time. But there's a big opportunity for private sector and governments to really benefit, and people like us, middle income, upper middle income, to also have natural ways of eating
Getting the
healthy food.
nutrients. Yeah. So interesting you say that, but I'm sure that there are several challenges of building awareness. And that can be a big challenge in a very diverse country like India, where there are too many factors at play in terms of education, poverty, infrastructure, language barriers. So the uniformity can be a big challenge. So what, according to you, can you share with us a couple of challenges that you have either faced or anticipate for building awareness?
Yeah. So well said. I mean, those are the key challenges. So what we are trying to do here is how do we, in a most cost-effective way, create awareness. So we have identified, obviously the government plays a big role. The Prime Minister of India last year endorsed biofortified crops. Indian Council of Agricultural Research is also, developing and disseminating biofortified crops. So that's all good. But at the farmer level, at the consumer level, we are working we have adopted different models now. So for farmers, for example, how do we bring them and show them the technology? Now, show and tell is a big thing for the farmers. This requires resources. So the resourcing of this is a very, important aspect for us. And we're donor driven. We're all donor driven. So we're looking at digital tools. With the challenge, I'm also sort of thinking, how do we solve them? So digital tools and technologies are important for us. Again, these are in the early stages of development, but they can go a long ways in addressing these kind of challenges. So resourcing is, Shital, is the big one. Obviously, cultural differences are there, so we have to adjust our messaging according to culture. In Bangladesh, things are done differently. In India, things are done differently. The idea is to get the message across. So we're adaptive. We have to adapt. We have to be innovative. And partnerships are the key. So the challenge is also for getting the governments, state governments, and private sector involved.
Very interesting you say that, and yes, I agree with you that it it has to be adapted to each geography. And but you mentioned the word technology a couple of times now. COVID and consequent improvements in technology have played a big role of a game changer So
Yeah.
can you share with us how it has impacted your company, your products?
So, this is a, a, a great learning in the last 3 years in the COVID era, how we operated. I mean, when COVID hit, we thought, things will come to a stop
Right.
because that's how it looked. And then we quickly pivoted and try to see how we keep in touch with the farmers, communication, awareness building, and getting our partners capacitated is key. So, as I look today now, 3 years later, I mean, COVID has brought the future to now. So what was supposed to happen 10, 15 years later, it just
Yeah.
happened now, and it's brought the future to now. And we looked at last year 2021, compared it to 2022, 2020, and our reach and our ability to benefit our beneficiaries increased by 32%. So technology played a big role. So we pivoted to digital tools,
Yeah.
simple things like SMS messaging, video conferencing with, groups of farmers, and then also adopting digital technologies in a big way with partners. Like we have a relationship with IFCO Kisan, where we partner with them, where they then help we give our products, and then they with their technology are boosting the productivity of farmers through technology. So they have the satellite monitoring, they share information, how the field is doing, when the rains are coming, when to apply fertilizer. So partnerships and technology are now really becoming a game changer in terms of increasing the productivity and increasing the quality. We're able to now deploy digital tools in our supply chain, so where we can create good, traceable, high quality grain supplies. We never thought
Yeah.
we would ever do it, but with the COVID, things completely changed. So what was supposed to happen 15 years ago, from now,
That
happened.
already happened
Yeah, future is
yesterday.
now, basically, I
Yeah.
mean, and future is now.
Very interesting. Now, your organization has supported and promoted women entrepreneurship in the food value chain as well. Our audience would love to know some of the measures or some insights that you can give us on this topic.
Yeah, so women are front and center for us. Gender equality, women empowerment are very, very important, and our programming, really addresses that. So when these biofortified crops were developed, we had women of reproductive age, adolescent girl, and children in mind, their needs, their nutrient needs. So this whole intervention is targeted towards them. So that's one. The product itself is, women centric, primarily, and kids centric. So that's that. And then what we are now doing is paying special attention to women in terms of, if they are farmers, how do we increase their capacity? In India, we reached about 1.4 million, farmers, and 2/3 are women. So we are really working hard to increase their capacity. And then once they learn from, us, the farming agronomic practices, the benefits of biofortified crops, they're adopting, they're becoming more successful in improving their livelihoods. On the other side, if you look at Africa, for example, in Nigeria,
Right.
we are working with mothers who started, consuming biofortified crops themselves and for their children, and they're seeing the benefit of the health benefits. They're starting small enterprises, food-based. So they're, like, for example, some very successful entrepreneurs are making baby foods now from our products, sweet potatoes, vitamin A, cassava, vitamin A, sweet potato. And so we are helping them with things like recipe development, their capacity building on marketing, financial inclusion, so that they become more and more successful. So, we're working in India with Jivika, which is a livelihood program in Bihar, a livelihood and poverty alleviation program with multiple women self-help groups, and where these women are becoming entrepreneurs, and then they are collecting this high zinc grain and are supplying that to the hospitals in Bihar. So they are becoming entrepreneurs, and we are getting them into the value chain. So it's all about their inclusion, their empowerment. Similarly, women in the Jivika self-help group are also involved in the aggregation business now. You have zinc wheat, you have to aggregate it, traceably, and they are linking it to local flour mills, and that's becoming an entrepreneur. They are becoming an entrepreneur and a business person. And then we provide all the other capacity building. So women are front and center, and I think they do a better job than men in understanding nutrition. And I'll tell you, I was just talking to our country director in Nigeria, and we have started a program of women extension agents. Nigeria being an Islamic country, and there are certain cultural norms around women are a little more comfortable with women. So we have started a program of women extension agents who are training women farmers, and these women on biofortified crops and how to increase their productivity and livelihood. And long story short, these women farmers are now employing their men in production of more raw material and production of local recipes and foods that they are selling locally to the community or within their community, because biofortified crops, people now they understand they are more healthy, etc. So they're becoming not only entrepreneur but also keeping their
employing men.
Spouses busy and out of trouble. So this is really heartening to hear that how the transformation is happening at the grassroots level.
That's so interesting, and that's wonderful to hear that this something you didn't anticipate, but yes, it's a great outcome, and that was not even the objective of the program. Yes. But wonderful to see so much that Harvest Plus is doing for women entrepreneurship. And my final question to you is: we have a lot of young professionals in our audience. They would love to hear from you some advice to the rising stars in this sector on how they should manage their careers.
Okay, so a few things coming from the private sector and then also in the development sector. So how to manage the careers. I think I'll throw out a few things and they can pick and choose what works for them. So right. What I've observed is the potential of impact is pretty significant, and there are huge problems in the world, right? Like I said earlier, 3 billion people cannot get a healthy diet, right? Healthy diet costs what, under $4, and 3 billion people are still making $2, $1.90. So the potential for impact is huge in the development sector. If you are impact driven, then this is a very noble, and a really good place to be. So that's point number one. What I have seen, we need more action, an action that leads to transformation. Don't do action for the sake of action. If you have to, progress, then you need to figure out how can you do things that are more transformative, and versus incremental changes. So, like with the biofortified crops, my personal sort of experience was coming from the private sector. We bred out nutrition. The crops were all about yield, and those are empty calories. When I came to this side, I realized the importance of nutrition. So now with these staple crops that we have, wheat and rice, the opportunity to transform food system is really there, right?
Yeah.
And how can then we sort of excite people, internally, externally, to sort of make those kinds of transformative moves is very, very, sort of that'll propel your career if you think in terms of transformation. Now, the transformation doesn't have to be, I mean, keep things simple. So the one thing I've sort of observed is we are very qualified people in the development sector. And sometimes there is analysis paralysis and the action is lacking. So when you have
decision making,
too much knowledge, then we keep sort of trying to refine things, whereas hunger and poverty and all these issues don't wait. I mean, it's a crisis. So sometimes working with what you have and then perfecting it over time is better than waiting for perfection and then missing out on changing the opportunities to really impact and change lives. Ability to take risk, I think that's important. This sector is forgiving as compared to private sector, because even if you make mistakes, it's a learning, and then you can share with others, right? So what not to do is also important as what to do. Sometimes what not to do is more important.
Than what to do.
Yeah, and then keep sustainability in mind. Don't do incremental things. We need to anchor these development projects into either private sector or the government, because donors will not be there forever to fund these. So you need to find sustainability. So that's the other piece, very, very important piece.
Very interesting point. How do you make sure it stays in perpetuity instead of just being dependent on a few donors?
Yeah, and then finally, if you have to grow, then you make sure you have a team that can lift you up. Because if you just want to do it yourself, it's going to be very difficult. So you need to have a team that lifts you up. Otherwise, you'll be a solo player, and that can only go so far.
True. Superb. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions from the audience. Could we have the spotlight on Nazar, please? She has a question to ask. You're on mute, Nazar.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Good afternoon, Arun, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
My question to you is, biofortification of crops is a collaborative effort of all stakeholders. As a leader in the sector, what can be some of the efforts of the social sector to bring the small growers and farmers on board?
Yeah, true. So this is a collaborative project. Harvest Plus came up with the idea, but then it was supported by the donors. So we had donors who were really interested in it, and then we had partners, especially the CGIAR partners. We had CIMET, we had CIAT, or what they call Alliance for Biodiversity and CIAT. We had IITA that really helped us develop these crops. And then we work with the local partners like the National Agricultural Research Institutes. Like, in India, we have several state universities, etc., as research institute as partners, to bring these crops into India. And then, the National Research Agriculture Institutes and Harvest Plus partner to release them. Once they were released, then we have to create awareness, like I talked earlier with Shital. So working with farmers, working with private sector, working with other NGOs to really then get these crops to the market. We work very closely with the farming communities, mothers, farmers, to make them understand the importance of nutrition. And so it took a full value chain approach, not just do the technology and dump and run. No, it takes a lot of effort. And for farmers, this is their livelihood. So they really want to make sure that these crops work on their particular fields. And so it was farm by farm, district by district, village by village. And today we're reaching almost 75 million people, and just on the farm side, on farm, and then additional 75 off farm as consumers. So the reach of this technology globally is about over about 150 million people and counting.
Super. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Such a comprehensive response. Thanks, Nazar, for asking the question. We have one final question from Sunidhi. So could we have the spotlight on her, please?
You're on mute, Sunidhi.
Yeah, sorry. So, hi. My question is, like the vaccination drive for COVID happened, and there was a certain fear that the people at the village level had around. I mean, it was not realistic, and we all know that that was not true, but they still had that fear. Maybe because of the kind of message they received was not right, or uh, so when something like the biodiversity crop, which will be included in the diet, so which means that that will enter into their body. So the what measures can be applied to avoid certain such kind of fear to get into their minds?
Yeah, excellent question. And we did face this, and we still do. So biofortified crops, that Harvest Plus is disseminating, scaling, they're all naturally, bred. So there's no GMO, none of those, technologies that are not accepted at the country level. So when we go to the countries, people ask, the first question they ask us is this: are they GMOs? Because people are, like, to your point, there's misinformation. So, to your point, I think we faced this a lot initially when we, almost 10 years ago when we started the delivery process. This was a hurdle initially, that people were not comfortable. But then, we worked with the village leaders, we worked with the government and the policymakers. And so we started, addressing at that level that the technology is safe. It is just like any other crops, but they have been thoughtfully bred to include higher contents or concentrations of minerals and vitamins. So once the stakeholders, understood, like the governments, the state governments, the local bodies, the National Agricultural Research Institutes, and then, the farmers. We had to convince the farmers too. So messaging is very important, to your point. The more you show the products and the benefit of these products, people understand. It takes time. It takes time, because seeing is believing for the farmers anywhere in the world, be it Indian farmer or farmer, in Africa or Latin America. So the right messaging and demonstrating the benefits of these products on the field, I have found those are the most convincing ways. And then the government and the local, authority should be behind you. So the more you can teach them consistent messaging, and then on the other side, I will say is, we saw rapid adoption in these technologies. So for example, with the right messaging, nutrition messaging, and crop messaging, technology messaging, in Pakistan, for example, we have zinc wheat that's been released, high zinc wheat. And, in the next 2 to 3 years, in the state of Punjab, Pakistan, Punjab, the zinc wheat is going to be almost 50% of their production area. So this is big. This is a real food transformation also happening. So on the flip side, if they understand, if your message, is understood and you demonstrate, the crops are performing really well. And it's starting to happen in India. We have projects in Bihar and Odisha funded by Gates Foundation. And there we're seeing a real uptake of the technology now by the farmers. So yes, this is communication is the key, Sunidhi. And if you can get the right message and show and tell, and you have to tell people what it is, get the stakeholders involved, because, you need to create people who understand your technology, guardrails, what they call, so that they can then, also be your sort of, also be people who can clarify this. So the farmers believe in farmers, farmers believes in extension agents, farmers believe in the local sort of, authorities. And that's other people you need to target besides the national level. And now the Prime Minister of India has endorsed biofortified crops. He's a very popular man. I hope people are listening. And that helps, coming at that level also is a support. But your point is excellent. And we did run into that initially.
Thank you, Sunidhi, for a very interesting question. And thank you, Arun, for a very comprehensive answer. And yes, I'm sure with the Prime Minister's endorsement and push for it, it'll be an easier task for you. And we've run out of time, but not out of questions. But thank you so much, Arun, for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And a big, big thank you to our audience who've been with us in this journey. And thank you, and looking forward to the next episode. On that note, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.